The first meeting is really a get-to-know-you meeting. We're going to sit down. Typically, the meeting will last about an hour. We're having a conversation. My job is to ask them some questions about where they are, what some of their goals are, what some of the key objectives they have in meeting with me, where they are to this point, and really what brought them in to see me. And now I'm at the point in my career where I have a lot of people that are dependent upon me to provide them with all the guidance and all the advice that we do on a day-to-day basis.
You spend your working years trying to build up your assets, trying to build up pension credits at your job, trying to grow your nest egg so that you can one day retire when you can't work or don't want to work anymore. And that's a period followed by phase two, which is retirement. And your priorities in these two phases are very different, but many times we see people don't make that shift and they still act like they're in phase one when they really should be acting like they're in phase two.
We're going to talk to you about what we commonly refer to as the second half of the game. And what I mean by that is you're working your entire life towards retirement, and I'm assuming that most of you are, at that age where you're starting to consider some of your options as you move into retirement. And as you do that, you're moving from what we call the accumulation phase of your life, where you're accumulating your assets. Maybe you're participating in your company's 401k, maybe you're contributing to an IRA account or a Roth IRA account or some type of retirement vehicle. And now, as you retire, you're transitioning into the distribution phase, or the part where you're going to need income in retirement. So we're going to talk about some different ways to do that with an emphasis on Social Security.
Hello and welcome to Financially Speaking with Jeff Bush. Jeff, on today's show we want to discuss annuities, specifically index annuities.
Well, hello, Barry, and welcome to the show. Let's start off by saying that it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. But all kidding aside, we want to talk about index annuities today, really for two reasons. Number one, we found in our practice that index annuities, they're an effective tool for planning for retirement. And number two, there's really a lot of misunderstanding on index annuities. And hopefully we can clear up some of that misunderstanding during our 30-minute talk here today. I want to say what a pleasure it's been doing the shows here in Pottstown. The topics we've covered really are the same ones that we talk about every day in our practice, and it's good to get that message out to our viewers here on PCTV and also through the magic of the internet, not only on the PCTV website, but on our website as well.
Well, that's great. Listen, why don't we talk about the basics of annuities? A lot of our viewers, they've probably heard about annuities, but they may have different ideas and misconception as to what an annuity is. It means a lot of different things to different people.
Okay, and specifically what an index annuity is. Let's get right down to it because we really have a lot of material to cover today. An annuity is a financial product primarily sold by an insurance company. And annuities are used as a means of securing a steady cash flow for someone during their retirement years. And of course, they have special tax ramifications. There's several kinds of annuities. You have immediate annuities, deferred annuities, and within deferred annuities, you have different kinds. There's fixed rate, interest rate annuities, there's variable annuities, and then there's index annuities. And index annuities are really the subject of today's show.
Well, what makes index annuities such a popular item these days?
Well, that's the intrigue. And I can best define that by using my blackjack analogy. And I was recently in Atlantic City, and of course that's a city filled with tourists hoping to get rich quick, many of them at a blackjack table. And if you sit at the blackjack table at any casino, you have to place a chip down to place your bet on every hand of blackjack. And there's really, Barry, three possible outcomes when you place your bet. You're either going to win, you're going to lose, or you're going to push, or you're going to draw, you're going to get your money back. If you play long enough, the odds are stacked against you. It's really a game of statistics. Simple game of statistics. So let's change the game for a moment and make a trade-off. So when you place that chip down and you win, instead of doubling your money, you only get a percentage of that. You only get a percentage of the gain. But in exchange for that, when you lose, you get to keep your original chip. Okay, so that's right. You can't lose. You can only win, but you only win a portion of the gain.
So what you're saying is if you're giving up the idea of being greedy and hope to win, you say, well, I'd be more satisfied if I can just stay in the game and make my occasional wins and stay in the game and never lose.
And that's right. And that's how an index annuity works. Your investment in the insurance company is tied to an underlying index, say the S&P 500. And when the S&P 500 is up, you participate in the gain. When the S&P 500 is down, you don't absorb the loss. And I should say that you aren't actually buying the S&P 500. The insurance company is actually crediting your account based on the performance of the index. So I just want to make it clear that you're not actually buying an index. There's no such thing as buying an index. It's just a measurement of performance.
Okay, that makes sense. But when you hear one of these things, well, geez, you can win, but you can never lose. A lot of people are going to think that, well, that kind of sounds almost too good to be true. Where are the risks here?
Well, first of all, we have to sort of peel the investment back a little bit and take a look at it. First of all, with this type of investment, it's really long term. So, and I call this the cost of liquidity. So, in other words, Barry, if you have a bank savings account or a money market account, you can walk right down to the bank this afternoon and get your money out of the bank.
Right. That's liquid.
It's total liquidity. With an index annuity, or any annuity for that matter, it doesn't quite work that way. You're going to get a return that's hopefully better than a bank account, but in exchange for that, your investment is tied up, which is called a surrender period. So you have to make some sort of a time commitment with the insurance company in exchange for this crediting that's going to hopefully be better than a bank rate over a period of time.
So they know that if you're going to have to, it's going to cost you a surrender charge to get out of it, let's say within 5 years or whatever the time period is, you're more likely to stay with it and not just pull your money out because you woke up one morning and said you decided to buy a new truck.
Right. So how does this compare to a bank CD? Well, for one thing, it's hard to get yield on any bank instrument because interest rates are so low. When you look at the 10-year Treasury rate, or you look at the prime rate, or any other measurement of interest rates, we're at historic low rates. So consumers have to flock to other investments to get yield, to boost their yield. So when they do that, they have to understand what they're giving up. And let's say that consumers getting 1% on a simple one-year bank CD. Or better yet, they're getting 2% on a 5-year bank CD. Now that CD, or any bank instrument for that matter, has FDIC insurance, which protects the consumer in the event of the default of the bank. And the annuity may have a guarantee, but that guarantee is based on the claims paying ability of the insurance company, not on any kind of insurance like the FDIC. So the FDIC is actually, it stands for Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation.
It's insurance.
So it's insurance on your bank investment, whereas when your money is in an annuity, it's actually backed up by the insurance company itself. So that's why in our practice we generally stick with insurance companies that have high agency ratings.
Yeah, the strong insurance company with a solid balance sheet and a good strong history, they don't need the FDIC insurance, the Federal Deposit Insurance, because they basically have high reserves and they have the money to pay off their obligations.
That's right. But that's why, and that's sort of our role, is we want to look at these insurance companies and make sure that they're financially sound, that they have, they've been around a long time, they've got solid rate. There's rating agencies out there that determine what the financial strength and solvency is of these insurance companies, and that's extremely important. And a lot of consumers ask that question, that I'm making this investment in this annuity and I'm giving up the FDIC insurance. So we have to make sure that everybody understands what that means when you give up that element of insurance.
And the reality of it is the bank needs to have that insurance because the bank doesn't keep the assets in the bank. The bank takes your money, pays you the 1 or 2%, and then lends it out at 5 or 10%.
That's right.
So the money is out on the street. That's why if a lot of people want their money at once from the banks can have a real issue, and that's where the federal government steps in with insurance.
That's right.
Of course, we haven't seen that with the insurance companies. They're very solid, very stable, very you could say boring. They keep doing it year after year. You don't read about them having those kind of issues.
That's right.
Now, when we talk about annuities, these are products really that are more geared to people that are getting closer or planning for retirement, not your 20 or 30-year-olds.
Right. Well, the age of the consumer is really important here, because when we talk about liquidity, we also have to be mindful of the age of the consumer, because by law, withdrawals from an annuity taken before age 59 and a half are subject to a penalty. They're subject to a 10% penalty. So the gains on the annuity are tax deferred, but you have to be at least 59 and a half to take the money out of the annuity without a penalty. And that's why we generally say that these products are for older consumers. It's really a retirement vehicle, or really a consumer with a long time horizon. So there's nothing wrong with someone in their 40s or 50s investing in an annuity, but they just have to understand that it's really a long-term investment, much like an IRA would be. And you have to think of it in terms of, okay, I'm not going to be able to get at this money without some sort of a penalty before I'm 59 and a half.
And that's probably why we see so many people that are, as they approach retirement, they have a 401k that's maybe in the stock market, maybe it's in the fixed account, not making much, and they look out to the landscape and say, well, geez, this IRA is really about my retirement income. What vehicles are available to make sure I have plenty of retirement income and that it doesn't run dry on me?
Well, one thing that is worth mentioning here is that if you have money that's not an IRA in the annuity, you're getting tax deferral, and that's a very powerful thing. So all your gains inside that annuity you're deferring the tax. So if you take, let's say you take $1,000 and you double it to $2,000, that entire $1,000 that you made is still tax deferred. You haven't paid all taxes on it yet. Unlike going back to the bank CD, that same $1,000. Now, of course, it would take a very, very long time.
You'd have to be about 10,000 years old by the time you hit doubled your money.
But let's say that you did. That $1,000 you'd be paying the taxes as you go. So it would be a lot harder to, the compounding effect of the tax deferral is much more powerful. But you're going to pay, in that example of the non-IRA, you're going to pay the tax when you take the money out, okay? And you have to be 59 and a half to avoid that 10% penalty. Now, conversely, if it's an IRA, it doesn't matter if it's in the CD or if it's in the annuity, because you're going to
tax deferred.
It's tax deferred regardless. So you're going to pay the tax on the money when you take it out of the CD. You're going to pay tax when you take the money out of the annuity.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the stock market, because that's really why people look to an index annuity as an alternative to the stock market. They see money is made in the stock market, but they also see that fortunes are lost. So let's talk a little bit about how this
well, that gets back to my comment about Noah building the ark before it started to rain.
I was wondering about that. Kind of came out of left field.
Well, so many consumers have investments in the stock market, and with an index annuity, you don't have that risk. When the stock market goes down, you just don't lose money. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the whole sizzle here. you're not actually investing in the index, but your interest is credited tied to the index. So if the stock market goes down, you're not absorbing the loss. You simply get a zero credit to your account that year.
So we can say to our client, you know, I have good news for you. You made zero return this year. Well, how's that good news? Well, the market lost 29%.
Well,
let's say.
what you're referring to, Barry, is the power of zero. Okay? So let me use Martha as an example in the year 2007. So we put Martha in an index annuity back in 2006. She came in, we did a suitability review, we decided that the best investment for her with a portion of her money was in this index annuity. And as I was preparing for her annual meeting, I was reviewing her statement, and I saw that Martha had made 9% on her account for the year. And I was really looking forward to having that meeting with Martha and giving her the good news that she had made 9%. So I said to Martha, Martha, you made 9% and had complete downside protection with your investment. Martha was unimpressed because she saw that the stock market had done 14% that year. So her investment only made 9%. So as she saw it, the investment was underperforming. And I was having trouble seeing Marcia's rationale. So Barry, fast forward to a year later in 2008, I kind of had a knot in my stomach getting ready for the meeting because she had made 0% for the year. So imagine my surprise when Martha walked into my office with a great big smile on her face and a batch of freshly made brownies. And I said, Martha, you made 0% on your annuity investment last year. And she said, I know, but I want to thank you because all my friends lost a lot of money in the stock market. And in truth, the S&P 500 index was down 38% that year. So she made 0. So that's really the power of 0. Because when you have an investment that's not losing money, it's much easier to recover from that kind of a market.
That makes sense because, again, her friends, let's say they had an investment that was in the stock market, in the S&P 500, they lost 38% of their money. Well, that's very hard to overcome, especially for someone like Martha or people that are older that are either using this money for income, to generate income, or plan to. How do you overcome a 38% loss when you're that close to taking it for income?
Well, you don't. Sometimes you don't.
Yeah. Because you can't just make 38% the next year and get it back either.
No, because there's a phenomenon there of when you lose that much, you have to double that just to get back. But the important thing here to mention also, Barry, is that the 9% that she made the year before, she didn't have to give that back. So in 2008, when the market was down by 38%, she made 0. But on this index annuity, and really on most index annuities, they credit your account annually, and there is a reset feature on here. Now, the reset feature is extremely vital here.
Sure.
Because what that means is in 2009, when the market began to recover, she was recovering from 0. Her next door neighbor, who had their money in, let's say, just stocks, and the market started to recover, they were recovering from minus 38. There's a big difference.
Sure.
So when Martha made money in 2009, the market had a pretty strong recovery. So her account was up 15% in 2009 because the market started to recover. Well, her friends, they may have even made more than 15%, but they were starting from a point of a minus 38. So it took them many, many years if at all, to recover from that disaster of 2008.
You know, and it's interesting because I was talking with a family member yesterday, and the radio just happened to be saying the market was up, I forget, 100 points or whatever. And they said, oh, the market's up 100 points. And I said, well, what does that really mean to you? I mean, well, I like that. Well, yeah, but if it's down 100 points by lunchtime, what does that mean to you? Well, I don't like that. So in reality, unless there's some type of locking in mechanism for when you have these kind of gains, they're really just numbers moving on a piece of paper that aren't going to really affect the way you live until you go to spend the money and it's not there, you know, or it is. You know, that's
yeah, I
key.
mean, historically, you can look at, and I think, generally speaking, as consumers, you know, we're greedy, and you know, when you have money invested in the stock market and the stocks are going up, you have a tendency to want to keep it there and make more money. It's just like the blackjack analogy that I gave. You know, you're putting that chip on the blackjack bet, and sometimes that chip doesn't really represent cash because it's just a chip, and you don't really realize your gain or your loss until you cash your chips in, right?
Until you're well out the door.
Yeah, yeah. So what happens is people that are up, and it's very hard to any sort of gambling is hard to win over a long period of time, just simply because the statistics are overwhelmingly in favor of the house.
Sure.
I mean, how do you think they build these large casinos? Of course, you know, some of the casinos in Atlantic City are beginning to fail, but that's another story. The point of the matter is they've spent a lot of money building those things.
Well, when you have a business where hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars are flowing through it, if they make their 2%, let's say, it still turns out to be a fair amount of money. But that means everything's got to be tilted in their favor, because they wouldn't be in business if they were set up to lose 2% at those tables. They have to make something, and
Yeah.
And you're playing against professionals when you walk into a casino, and somehow people think they can make money. And
Right,
of course, odd ones do.
And some people do make money, but overwhelmingly, it's a deal that's stacked against you. And I mean, I first came to realize that when I saw, you know, Donald Trump investing in these casinos, and you know, he's a smart guy. You know, you may not like him, but he's a pretty bright guy. And when you think about, you know, investing in a casino, there's money to be made there. So he's taking money on average from every person that walks through that casino. But the point that we want to make here as it relates to the index annuity is that the power of not losing money in an investment is very strong and very compelling. And that's why people put money in the bank. They put money in the bank because there's no risk to principal. The problem today is that, yeah, there's no risk to principal. However, the interest rates are so low that it's hard to get any kind of yield. I mean, I have a money market account that pays 0.04%. It's pretty sad. 0.04, almost nothing.
Well, and the fact is that inflation, depending on which statistic you look at, is generally going to be in the 2 or 3% a year range, just on average. Sometimes worse, sometimes not so bad. But if you're not making 2 or 3% on your money after taxes, then you're actually losing money. You're losing the value of what that money can buy.
Right.
And when you compound that over years and years and years of having something, you know, lose purchasing power of 2 or 3%, you look up 5 years later and your money, it looks like you lost money because you can't buy what you could buy 5 years ago. So just to stay even, you need to make that kind of return. And actually, if you want to generate income and maintain the principal, you need to do a little better than that.
That's right. That's right. So today we had a nice discussion about index annuities. We have a couple minutes left here today, and I just want to mention that if we want to get some information out to our listeners, or I should say our viewers. So can't get rid of that radio mentality here. Our viewers, they can simply contact us either through our email address, which is, we got the information up the screen here. It's informedfamily.com. I think the email address is actually info@informedfamily.com, or give us a call, and we'll get you out a report on index annuities. They're really complicated financial instruments, and something that we can't adequately cover in a 30-minute show.
One thing we do want to make a point is that there are people in the business, in the financial world, who are selling index annuities and pretty much nothing but index annuities, and pushing the story of, well, you can't lose your money, but you can make money when the stock market goes up, which, there's some truth in that. But you do want to be careful, because generally it's going to be part of a financial plan. It's going to play a role in a financial plan. It's going to have a job in your financial plan. But generally speaking, one annuity shouldn't be an entire financial plan. You need things that are going to be for income now, for income later, for income much later. There's issues with estate planning and how you're going to pass the money on, and
Right.
that type of thing. So annuities are power tools, and
that's right. You have to use them in the right way.
use them for the right reason, use them in the right fashion, use them to benefit people, and not look upon them as a total panacea for every financial ailment in the world.
Well, just by the mere fact that they're not a liquid investment. Rule of thumb, you're looking at probably a 10-year investment with an index annuity. Some could be shorter, some could be longer, but by and large, you're looking at a 10-year time horizon on an index annuity. So we want to make sure that you've got liquidity so that you can get at other assets. So you only want to put a portion of your assets into an index annuity. So we're about ready to put a wrap on another show here,
Can I
Barry.
ask you a quick question though?
Yeah.
Have we covered that we start building the ark before it's raining?
You start building the ark. Yeah, in other words, you want to invest in your index annuities now. You don't want to wait until the stock market crashes, and then you want to buy your index annuity. That's too late.
So it's a great way to lock. If you've had some good gains, and hopefully some people
Yeah,
have
you
had,
wanna
we've had a
lock
big
it
run over the
in.
last 5 years.
Yeah,
Good
that's
time
what.
to lock in some things.
You build your ark before it starts to rain. So that's a wrap on another show. Give us a call if you want more information. Until next time, this is Financially Speaking with Jeff Bush.